My name is Ryan Atherton. For my formative speech object, I'm going to do security since 9/11. Security in the United States has increased dramatically since the September 11th attacks. After the terrorist attacks in the United States, government passed the Patriot Act that not only changed security in the airports, but along with the airplanes and anywhere else with new rules and provisions. James Shinnebracker, chairman of the Judiciary Committee and part of the Government Accountability Office, wrote the Patriot Act is on the United States government with new tools for investigating terrorism and terrorist financing. The United States takes several steps forward in the equipment used for the security and the procedures used in the airport and on the airplanes. I'll talk about two main areas regarding the procedures and equipment used today and with future plans. My main focus will be on the equipment and procedures used in the airplanes and at the airports in efforts to prevent terrorism. Next, I'll talk about the programs and equipment that are in hopes of being implemented or that have been attempted to try to further and advance security measures. Alright, first, the security measures in the airport and on the airplanes have changed quite a bit since 9/11 attacks on the United States. On the airplanes, security measures that are mainly in place to prevent terrorist takeover or to harm people on board. The first improvement was the installation of bulletproof cockpit doors. Secondly, was that a lot more air marshals were on board the airplane and they're armed as well. Then lastly, the U.S. Senate passed a bill to allow the pilots to carry firearms on their person. In the airport, security measures were increased as well in hopes of stopping terrorism, and the measures range from increased personnel to more equipment. First, the government passed the Aviation and Transportation Security Act, which in turn created the Transportation Security Administration, known as the TSA. Jobs of the TSA agents include checking passenger lists received from the airlines through a watch persons list, training people through security, and maintaining order in the airport. The first measure taken by the TSA were increased screenings by passengers going through the now multiple layered security required to get into the terminals. The increased securities include metal detector for the passengers, X-ray for the carry-on baggage, and an explosion detector screening for checked baggage. Prior to the September 11th attack, metal detector screenings were required of the person, but since then they have added that the people have to take off their shoes, and carry-on liquids are now no longer prohibited because they could be in the explosive form. Lastly, aside from the addition of the TSA subdivision in the airport, police presence in and around airports have increased dramatically in efforts to scare off terrorism or suicide bombers before they even take action. We have now discussed security measures that have been taken since the increased security, but advancement in security are still in progress. James Obster, from the Government Accountability Office as well, has identified and said the need for improved technology to detect explosives and other threatened items at airport passenger screening checkpoints to strengthen the nation's defense against the action of terrorism is needed. One that has been recently introduced into some airports and received much controversy would be the backscatter X-rays, which are known to show objects by showing just a full picture of the human being through the X-ray machine. Secondly is the trace detector, which is known as the puffer. The purpose is to detect residue on the person that could affiliate them with terrorism. Recently, as well with the addition of the quadruple resonance scanning, which has proved pretty successful in scanning passenger baggage, statistics have received from Jane Viddock, author of the World and Eye newspaper, showed the probability of detection has been found to be over 99%, with a false alarm rate of just under 10%. Prior to the invention, experiments had shown that about half of the time detection failed. The last method that has been used is the old polygraph test. They use polygraph tests to test passengers by putting their hand on the scanner and asking them a series of questions to see if they were lying or not, to see if they should be suspicious of them. And now on to my conclusion. I have talked and explained the security measure the United States has used now in efforts to prevent future terrorist attacks in the direction the United States is headed. Increased security measures in the airplane and airports have been used to prevent terrorist attacks on the airplanes to protect the passengers aboard. Increased security in the airports has the goal of stopping all possible terrorist activities from even getting into the terminal or the airports. The increased personnel and advancements of technology, along with the now multiple layer security, have been the main efforts in this fight. With the new technology comes increased effectiveness to prevent possible attacks. Thank you. This is the end of my speech.